The battle for the mind. 2 Corinthians 10, 3 through 5. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments, and everything that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. Paul tells us two important things here about spiritual warfare. First, though we walk around in the physical realm of the world, the war for our souls begins in the spiritual realm by attacking all the strongholds Satan has formed against us. Satan builds these strongholds by attacking our minds when we are young. A stronghold may be defined as a place dominated by a particular group. In the case of spiritual warfare, this group is Satan, the fallen angels, and his demons. How did they gain this stronghold in your mind? The brain is a miraculous creation of God. In humans, its development takes years. From birth to 1-year-old, the brain operates in its lowest frequency, delta. This is a sleeping, dreamlike state that as adults we go into at night at the deepest part of our sleep. From 2 to 6 years old, the child's brain goes into higher frequency, theta. Theta is a very suggestible state where we learn how to function in our environment. Don't touch the flame, it'll burn you. Look both ways before you cross the street. It's a semi-hypnotic state in which the multi-thousand-page instruction manual for life is downloaded directly into our subconscious through our experiences. This information, correct or incorrect, is downloaded into our subconscious without us consciously evaluating this input. It is a state where reality and imagination often overlap. Thus, to a child playing in the tree fort, it really is a castle, and their bicycle is their horse. Unfortunately, it's at this very vulnerable theta state of our mental development that Satan hijacks this behavioral download system to plant negative strongholds to keep us from fully living productive and joyful lives. He's like a hacker who gains access to your computer and inserts Trojan horse viruses to prevent your computer from working properly and leaves himself a backdoor to access your computer whenever he wants to oppress or afflict you. At this vulnerable stage, this negative programming may be as simple as our parents, teachers, peers, or others telling us, "You're not smart. You're too fat. You'll never amount to anything." Since a child in this theta state has not yet developed the analytical thought process to understand these statements are not true, these negative statements are downloaded into the subconscious as truth and become part of our operating system for the rest of our lives. This is why even when you're 40 years old, you may go home and a family member makes one of these old negative programming statements to you, and you'll react the same way you did when you were a child. It's programmed into your operating system. In Satan's more complex and insidious forms of attacks, he will have people harm children at this very vulnerable state, sexually, physically, and emotionally. This causes unimaginable damage to a child's psyche, a wound that later in life may lead to addiction, serious mental health issues, or self-destruction. Wounds that Satan uses as a stronghold to dominate and destroy human to keep them from the salvation of Christ. He will also use his demons at night to torment children by influencing their dreams, actually physically appearing, or physical contact. Christ knew that children are very vulnerable at this delicate stage of mental development. This is why Christ says in Matthew 18:6, "But whoever causes one of these little ones who believes in me to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea." Fear is Satan's main weapon. I once heard a great definition for fear: false evidence appearing real. Satan and his demonic army use every avenue to make us fearful of things: finances, relationships, our health, our environment. He uses guilt and shame to make us feel unworthy of love or success. He builds these fears layer upon layer into a stronghold to prevent us from living the abundant life God intended for us to live. Christ came to earth to give us the tools to tear down these satanic strongholds in our minds, to bind and cast out his demonic horde that oppresses and afflicts us daily, to bring inner healing to the wounds Satan has inflicted upon us, and once healed, help those around us to accomplish the same victory over Satan and his kingdom. Christ's sacrifice to save humanity was a free gift he gave to us. However, his salvation is only the first step. The second step is to use the weapons he gave us to achieve freedom from Satan's wounds, daily attacks, and oppression of our souls. These are weapons we have to learn to use from his and his disciples' examples they left us in the Bible, our supernatural instruction manual for life. This requires study, practice, persistence, and the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Because as we're told in 1 Peter 5, 8 through 9, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Resist him, steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same suffering are experienced by your brotherhood in the world. The next section will contain information about the most important decision you will ever make in your life.